Hey, welcome everybody to AI News and Gurus, the show for intelligent distributors. DSG is back here better than ever in 2026, and we are super excited here today for our first kickoff show of the year. And we're going to be talking to Michael Leister, the Director of Customer Experience at Carrier Enterprises, about what they're doing with AI. And we're really, really excited about talking to him. But before we get started, let me talk about a couple of things that are going on within DSG. So first of all, the Applied for AI for Distributors is now underway. So we are going to be bigger and better than ever for 2026. And I just realized my slide isn't changing, so I apologize. Technical difficulty. Sorry about that, everybody. All right. Well, we are going to punt, everyone. Sorry about that. The slide is not advancing on me. So, as I was saying, Applied for AI for Distributors is open now. So, go to appliedforaidistributors.com to really tune in and understand what's happening within AI. We are going to have over 30 technology companies that'll be at the show that are showing proven solutions that distributors are using today. So, sign up early. This is going to sell out. We've added some amazing speakers. We've got Stu Tisdale, the Chief Experience Officer at ADI Global, Dwayne Roberts at President of Summit Electric Supply, and Alex Chashovsky, the Director of Analytics and Consulting at Bundy Group. These are amazing speakers. We're adding more every week, and you'll be able to continue to see what's happening with AI and distribution. This is a show you cannot afford to miss. The other thing I want to talk to you about real quickly is our Distributor RX software suite. Now, these are three amazing tools that help distributors understand their business in ways that no other tools can. We have our first one, which was customer experience, which is the most practical tool for distributors on the market. It gives you actionable customer level feedback on issues that are happening in your business that are very specific and help you very focus in on what needs to change. So if you have an inventory problem in Phoenix or you have a customer experience problem in Cincinnati, this is the tool that's going to tell you that. Most of the tools that are out there really revolve around one high level number that don't give you a lot of actionable opportunity. This one gives you that. The other one is employee experience, and it's built on the exact same structure. So keeping the best employees you have and making sure they're having a great experience with their company is hugely important. So gives you the opportunity to pinpoint what you're doing, where you need to do it, where you need to fix what's going on in your company so that your employees have the best experience with you. And then the last tool is Customer Demand RX. And that's really helps you estimate the sales potential by product line, by customer, and really help you understand and uncover those opportunities that exist in the marketplace where you might be missing those with some of the traditional tools. All right, so now that our technical problems are now still with us, I'm going to invite my good friend and colleague Brooks Hamilton to the show. Brooks, how you doing, buddy?
Doing great. Happy New Year, everyone.
You're doing a lot better than I am now with the Zoom and the PowerPoint presentation. So
We'll see what we can do. We'll see what we can do.
I know you're going to be better off at this than I am.
Might,
All
might
right,
might be a worldwide gremlin. Who knows?
that could be. That could be. You never know. So good to see you again, my friend. I know we just
Likewise.
talked recently, but one of the things that I was really, really intrigued about is you and I had a conversation just yesterday, in fact, about what's happening with the job market,
Yeah.
right? AI is going to change the world. We keep hearing it's going to change people are going to change. And one of the things that um, I constantly hear, and it bugs me to a degree, is we are going to free people up to do higher level work, or we're going to free them up to do X, Y, and Z. And a lot of times that X, Y, and Z, we don't know what it is. It's very undetermined. It's kind of nebulous. And I found it very fascinating when you and I were talking yesterday about what you're working on with some of your clients on what does that next thing look like when it comes to people.
Yeah, yeah. I think that there's a lot of talk. I definitely appreciate the companies who are talking about redeploying their existing people into higher value skill areas. But it's been a little bit nebulous about, like, as you mentioned, what might those higher skill areas look like? And also, what might the jobs of the future look like? And by future, we mean January of next year,
Yeah.
maybe even as soon as January of this year. This is moving on at a very fast clip. And one thing that struck me when I said, "Oh, I'm really concerned about that there'll be no more knowledge work or very limited knowledge work." And somebody provided the rejoinder of like, "Hey, well, what do you think it would be like if you tried to describe the importance of a social media manager to yourself in '93?" Like,
Yeah.
that would have made no
You're right.
sense whatsoever. No part of that it would have been understandable. But 15 years later, that was really important. But there were a few things that needed to happen along the way. Well, just as in the internet age, things were moving quickly, but in the AI age, things are moving yet far more quickly. So
Yeah.
I think we're going to get to see what some of these new roles look like and what the technologies are that are driving these new roles. So just like when we needed to have things like the internet, mobile devices that are like smartphones, camera capabilities, and the social media platforms all needed to develop in order for us to get to social media manager. Those were some key technologies. Today, we see some key technologies coming out, like in the realm of integration. We saw MCP servers so that language models could connect to data sources as well as tools. And now we saw that Anthropic has come out with another pretty substantial, very simple innovation. They call it skills. And we'll take a quick look at this. We'll see whether or not we have a
Hopefully your share button's working better than mine.
no, it doesn't work at all. Wow. Yeah, no, totally disabled.
I think we have a Zoom gremlin.
I think we have a Zoom gremlin. Yes,
That
everything
could be.
is warning buttons in there. So welcome to the new year. I'll just do my best to visually take us through this, and then hopefully we can send out some visuals for this after the show. But an anthropic skill is what I think of as like it's a people program. You just describe how you would approach something for a language model. And or today's version of it is just it's a little document, and that document might have some references. Um, and you are able to use that when you're coming up on the task. So let's make this a little bit more concrete. Let's say you have a email come in and it's for a residential pump plumbing request. So certain number of items in there. Well, your team has a really specific way um, that they are going to be pursuing these. So they may be things like I need to parse the request. I need to understand what's in there. I need to line up, grab the customer information, the product information. I might want to treat copper fittings a little bit differently. It could be that there are also other requirements that I have. I'm going to go through a quality check after I've looked through the products and pricing and assembled a response. And then I'm going to use a specific type of language when responding. So it's a professional, friendly, warm um, type of language that I may use my email response for this. So all of those things are basically instructions that I use when I am performing this task of responding to a residential plumbing request. So great. I just talk about those things. I define them, and then it is written into what is called a skill. Um, and then this skill is triggered when something appropriate comes through that the model detects. So one way of thinking about this is it's my people program. It's how I give in contextual instructions to my language model as I'm performing these tasks.
So it's essentially a standard operating procedure for a large language model. Same thing you would do in, with working with a human. This is exactly how I need you to do this every time.
That's right. That's
Except it
exactly
doesn't
right.
deviate, right? It doesn't have its own ideas sometimes,
Yeah,
right? It's
yeah, yeah. And it's also it's quick to assemble. I could just talk to it and get that together. And also now I don't have to write a giant standard operating procedure guidebook. I could just kind of take it kind of task at a time as I like. Well, what we expect is this is going to take off. This is going to be something that is broadly used, especially among small and medium-sized
yeah.
organizations that have a little bit more flexibility in this area. Um, and the other great part that we find about it is this is a case where we have somebody who doesn't need to be highly technical doing this work. Instead, we can have somebody with a little bit of familiarity with AI tools, and they can have conversations with the people who are doing the work in order to determine what their standard operating procedure is. So, what we expect to happen over the short term. So let's call it 12, maybe as far as 24 months, is that just as we so Brian, we do have your screen showing. It
What?
looks like a file system. Uh,
Oh,
we'll take that for the win though. Um,
okay.
so the types of um, roles that we think that are going to come from this are three types. And those three are a skill developer. So this is someone who works with the people who are engaged in those tasks day to day, and they help them facilitate writing these skills that can be added into your broader set of skills for that department.
So
Uh,
you take your best customer service manager, right, who now is freed up to do higher level things, and they understand the complete context of the business, and they understand how skills and the tools work. Right? Is that what we're saying is now that instead of me managing the people who have kind of done the tasks traditionally, I'm starting to manage this skill
that's right.
because I understand because AI tools without the context are just a lot of noise in a lot of cases and can get in the way.
Yes. Yeah.
But having somebody like that with the context of the business, the pricing and the customers and how it all works is the one who helps build that skill. So it kind of creates that SOP, right?
That's exactly right. And for
Okay.
those of you who are familiar with working with language models, you might have done some of this, but it could be just like a little bit more copy paste. Like, oh, every time I do this task, I kind of have to write this thing out again, or I have to go to some document and paste things in. That's a bore, that's a challenge, that's an annoyance. So what this does is it makes sure that as we are approaching the task, um, I think this is the case with OpenAI and Anthropic is it will sense when you are approaching that type of task, call the skill. So it'll basically say, "Hey, this looks like the right skill to respond to this email. I'm going to pull that up." And now we're going to have not just one of these, but we will likely have many that correspond to the types of tasks that a role or a department is engaged in.
So you have a pricing skill that says this is how you price this every single time. You have a quote skill that this is how we respond to quotes, right?
Yes.
That kind of thing. And then
Yes.
the person that is now the customer service manager we talked about is responsible for making sure that all the context to the business exists in that skill.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
So
So
it goes back to why people need to understand these large language models. You know, you and I have been talking about this for a year and a half. They're really important to understand because now you take the context of the business along with the AI tools that are available. You put those together now in this skill that really didn't exist until 2 months ago.
mhm,
And
mhm.
now you've got a really powerful standard operating procedure for a company.
Yeah, yeah. It's a living version of my SOP manual.
Yeah.
And the other neat thing is I get to see it in action the moment I write it. So I don't have to, create a standard operating procedure documentation, set of documentation, train my team, monitor my team, see how they're doing. Instead, I write the skill, I can put it into work, and I can see how it goes right away. So now I'm managing people, but I'm also managing the set of tools, which essentially what these skills are, the
Yeah.
tools that they're using within their job, and hopefully getting some more consistency as well as efficiency from my team. Um, so I think that we'll see a someone called either like a skill developer or a
Yeah.
capability engineer or a capability analyst who will partner with the department leader to build out these sets of skills and tasks for the to address the tasks within that organization.
Yeah, and you're working with somebody right now doing this, right? Because
We are.
we've talked to some very large companies that are have still trying to figure this out, and you know, companies in the middle, right? So you're
Yes.
working actually with somebody right now working on this.
We are. We are. And we saw some tremendous progress working with them just for an afternoon, getting some of these skills together. And the really great part is it doesn't take much to teach someone to fish. So that's great. Once they learned how to do that first skill, phew, they're off to the races after that.
Yeah,
The other thing that these skills depend on, I think language models become much more efficient at it when using them is if they have the right context. So, context in this sense is not just how do I do the work, but what is the set of information that I use in order to get this work done. We're all accustomed to the databases that we have, ERP, CRM, WMS, all of those friends, PIM. Those are certainly context, but we also have other types of context in the organization, like how quickly does this individual get back to me? How often do we have high quality coming from this supplier? What are the types of negotiation dynamics that we have with this customer? Though that's also all context. And so we're going to see organizations starting to capture that and use it within their language models to get tasks done in combination with those skills.
yeah, right.
So we think they're going to be there will be context managers, which is going to be a real probably somewhere between I'd say a 10x to a 1000x increase in the amount of data that we're going to see organizations collect about themselves.
Yeah, no
And
doubt.
finally,
So
somebody's got to put this stuff together. So we're it'll be fascinating to see how these like cognitive operations managers or whatever they're going to be called,
mhm.
or just operations managers are going to come about this. So we're excited to see what's going to be coming.
Yeah, and I think that's where kind of the next evolution of is not just knowing and where people's value is going to lead is not just knowing the large language models, but how the context of the entire business and knowing that what's that critical problem solving? What's the business look like? How does it work? How does it operate? So you could give the models the context it needs to be successful.
That's right.
So we have a question from Mr. Wagner out in the audience talking about many companies asking their employees to start recording, documenting processes, and the question about how that works. I've coached people to say, we use a system at DSG called Otter AI, and it records calls. And I think by now everybody's been on calls with people who use transcription devices, and that's a great way to do that. Is get a team in a room on a Zoom call or in room physically if you can, and record it and just let people talk. And then you can use the large language model to pull out what's the SOP that we all agreed upon. And you literally don't even have to write it. I mean, the way I've used it is I've done exactly that. And I have a format my SOP is in, and I say recreate my SOP in this format.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
that's the kind of way you can use that, Jim, and others who may be thinking about that.
Yeah. In terms of prompt, might want to think about we're going to review this transcript, find the important tasks that are in there, organize them, identify which are should be retained by people and which might be able to be done by AI, and then create a
Great.
diagram of
That's a great
that
ad.
so that there's a visual to go along with it and to share, and that most importantly, something that people can react to.
That's a really good piece of advice. I didn't consider, what can AI do with this versus just people. That's really good. Yeah, I think skills are going to be a lot more pervasive into the environment. I think when somebody asked us if that's in Copilot, I don't believe that it is. I think this is kind of an anthropic thing. But with any of these models, they all are starting to kind of come together in all kind of do the same things. Some do things better than others. Right? I'm much rather do a picture in Gemini Nano Banano than I would in ChatGPT,
Yeah.
even
Yep.
though they both can do it. So I think we'll eventually get to that place, but for right now, that is just Anthropic.
Yeah, what we do know about skills are, and this is something that was proposed by Anthropic. It's been adopted by OpenAI as well as Google. We've heard also that Microsoft is going to be adopting it as a real object. They've just not worked it into their platform
Hmm.
of capabilities out there yet. We'll see when they do that.
We'll see. All right, let's transition, Brooks. What do you say? And we are very, very, very happy to have Michael Leister from CE with us. I gave him some coaching that said when he sees his picture, he should turn his camera on. But clearly, we can't share any of that today because the gremlins have gotten us. But Michael, you're on mute, my friend. But welcome to the show, and we're glad you're here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and I appreciate it, Brian and Brooks. Nice to meet you.
Likewise. Likewise. Great to have you here.
So why don't we let's just tell a little bit about you, Michael, and your story, and then a little bit about what CE does, and then we can talk about what you guys have done, which I really love what you've done with AI.
I appreciate it. So, Director of Customer Experience at Carrier Enterprise or CE, and about three and a half years ago, we started consolidating some teams to really provide our customers with a better experience. And you can't do that if you have multiple processes across the company. So, being able to um, consolidate the teams, having one standard SOPs. We talked about that. And then you start to learn where are the opportunities. And what we learned was, the last several years, customers are a little bit more accepting of AI. They're a little bit more accepting because it's part of their standard personal and business life. The pandemic kind of forced a lot of people out of their comfort zone. So, that was where we were really able to look at how could we do a phased approach. We don't want to lose trust with our customers, but we need to do a phased approach and be able to provide the best customer experience and meet their expectations. And I think that was the biggest thing is our customers' expectations changed over that last couple of years, and so their demand for information a lot faster, their demand for information at the touch of their fingers versus waiting on a phone became a little bit more palatable. And that's where we really started to look at, well, how do we do this? How do we make this happen within our organization?
So let's talk a little bit. Let's talk some specifics, right? So what I was really fascinated by is most of the time, distributors now are taking AI and they're putting on the back end. They're okay with, maybe automating orders, automating quotes, but you've done it on the front end in front of customers. So what's kind of one of the big use cases that you've done, and what made you decide, hey, let's use this one?
Yeah, the first one would be our live chat. So we still have a live chat that is manned by our human associates. And what we did was there was already a menu base. There was already a prompt. If you think about like pre-qualifying, like who is the customer, gathering that data, what do they need? What is the reason that they're chatting with us? Is there specific information like a model or serial number that we need? And so we utilized AI to capture the pre-qualifying. And it redirects the customer to self-serve, or it redirects the customer to a team if they specifically note what they're looking for. But it still asks them all of the pertinent information that a human associate is going to need. We did this in a phased approach. The nice thing is there's always a human in the loop. The human in the middle is pretty critical. So even if it does redirect them for self-serve, if it did not satisfy, it will say, did this satisfy your answer or provide an answer? And if they say no, it will keep them in the line and redirect them to the next available associate, and they'll still have that opportunity to speak with someone. So that was the first of really getting our customers comfortable and really understanding that they were okay with it. They didn't have a problem utilizing and providing the information. And you can tell because most people will fill it out. Occasionally, you'll have a person that will just type in human, and it'll redirect them immediately.
That might have been me.
The majority of our customers will fill out all the information asked and will provide the information. And then once it does get to one of our associates, that pre-qualification is done. There's a prompt that comes out that says, hello, this is Michael, and please give me a minute to review your information. So it already preempts the customer that we're reviewing it. And then we can jump right in and start helping the customer with whatever their need was. And we don't have to reiterate it. We don't have to ask questions if they're already there. Yeah, and then for the second, we really looked at an opportunity for just case management, but even with new accounts. Typically new accounts, when they are looking to do business with us, everybody fills out an application. They're used to that. But then there would be, a phone call. Like we need to verify if you're, a contractor versus a homeowner. We don't do business with homeowners. So, do you have a business license? And there might be questions or vetting that we would do. As part of our verification process, we do use AI, and it will go out and pull out the records. It will go and search for a business and the validity of the business. Does it have a website? Does it have a business license? Is there anything on the Better Business Bureau? And that will pull it into, again, our team. It will pull that pre-qualification, and we'll be able to see, do we have everything that we need and we can move forward with opening an account, or is there additional information that we need that we could not pull? The benefit of that is it's sped up the process for how we open an account and onboard a new customer. And it
Mm.
allows us, when we talk about, Brooks kind of touched into this, how do we, reallocate a workload to the talent or removing our talent? Well, now our talent isn't necessarily doing the data entry. What we're allowing them to do is the human associates can reach out and contact the customer, welcome them, do a follow-up. They can be the welcome wagon, where before we were asking them to do every single thing, and we just didn't have the time, and we didn't have the velocity or the scalability to be able to do that properly and create a great customer experience. And so, again, when we look at anything for AI, the answer has to be, is this going to provide a customer first mentality? Is this going to provide a value or benefit to the customer? And if not, then we have to evaluate, why are we doing this?
Yeah, I really like that framing there. So there are two things that really stuck out to me as positive about this. One is you all had clear criteria of how are we going to make these changes? What's the
Yeah.
the driver for it? I think a lot of organizations can say like, hey, we have these capabilities. How are we going to roll out these capabilities? I appreciate that you all are thinking about it. How do we improve these various processes and touch points that a customer has? The second thing that really struck me was how you all were looking at the overall task and identifying which parts were best done by a person and which parts are best done by AI, like that. Hey, let's speed that data entry. And then in exchange, let's try to enhance that customer experience. And we're not enhancing it exclusively through additional technology, but we're
Right.
enhancing it through additional technology and more of a personal touch. That's awesome. That is fantastic.
Absolutely. I mean, there has to be a human in the loop, because as distributors, our relationship, right? There's a deep relationship with our customers, and we don't want them to feel as if like everything has to go through AI. They can't contact a human being. There's a lot of complexity with being in the HVAC industry,
Yeah.
and you still need that human. So we are very careful in making sure that there's always that human in the middle. And you brought it up earlier, right? When we talk about new positions, it's like a new associate. We have to make sure that we're constantly looking at the AI, training the AI, coaching the AI, quality check, right? Or is it accurate? I mean, that we don't want to lose trust. And that's one of the biggest things as well when you look at it is, if the AI fails, are you going to be able to bring back that trust from those customers that you lost because the AI fails? So the phased approach, the being very calculated and strategic in where we use it. And I think we talked about it earlier, right? Is it palatable for the customer? There are certain things they're used to. I mean, Brian, you brought up the point, right? You called for a pizza and you spoke to AI. I think people are dealing with this in their daily life. So there's a little bit more understanding, there's a little bit more of a acceptance, and so utilizing that knowledge. And Brooks, to your point, how do we weave that into our current processes without deteriorating the trust and that relationship that we've built with our customers?
hmm hmm what have you noticed like on your team? What have they been excited about?
Everybody gets nervous, right? You mentioned it. People talk, oh, am I going to lose my job? But I think what they've realized is it helps lighten their load. We previously, 5 years ago, we were asking our associates to do a lot, right? So, your process is now 1 through 10. Once we start introducing AI, maybe their process is 1 through 5 now. And so it's lightening the load, and it's really being able to use their expertise, being able to use their skill levels. You talked about having the understanding and the content and that I think the general knowledge of what the actual question is. There's still a human that is needed to handle most of that.
Yeah.
And so we don't need to have the human doing the data entry or doing the, the follow up because you have a systematic issue that uploads at night and then you got to go back and check a box. If we
Yeah.
can utilize AI for that, that's absolutely the right place to do it. And it still provides a wonderful customer experience because now our team can focus a little bit more on the real detailed and complex portion of the transaction and that relationship building. So it doesn't become just transactional, but it also allows us to free up some time to work on the customer experience portion, which is where a lot of times, let's face it, most of us didn't have the time, right? It
Hmm.
was, we have 75 transactions and you only have so many, hours in a day to handle that. And what we've noticed in some of our case management, even in the live chat, even with the account setup, the time to handle those has gone down, which then creates a better customer experience. And that is because we've utilized AI in a really meaningful, valuable way that benefits the customer versus just saying we're going to use AI and check a box and everything's going to be AI and then you really just don't have a great experience.
Yeah, I love that because if you think about one of the first, you have a new customer and one of the first experiences they have is somebody picking up the phone, calling them, saying, "Hey, I need your business license. Show me a copy of a check." All the stuff you need to create a new account with. Versus my first experience is, "Hey, how are you? I'm this person. This is what we do. Here's how we can help you."
Right.
That to me is a great way to use these AI tools to help you move forward.
Yeah, it's super exciting. And again, that the synergy that you have where, you know, even some of the AI where it can connect with a person in an area where they're comfortable is great, but still keeping that human in the loop is paramount for us.
When think about human in the loop, there are certainly the aspects of keeping a human in the loop when you're interacting with a customer. There's also the human in the loop of how's my team doing as a manager. Has this helped you all gain additional insight into consistency or training opportunities?
Yes, absolutely. That goes into your your data analysis, and whenever you put these in place, you really have to have a robust way of measuring that, and it has to be real time. And we're lucky because all of our interactions are through our CM program, and the CRM program really provides us with that the data and also the dashboards, and so there's a lot of opportunity we see that we're currently working on for even just scoring. And one of the things we spoke about was it's just not the negative or the challenging
Yeah.
feedback we receive from a customer. We want that scoring to be also the highlight. Brooks received 550 cases. And out of those, 98% of the time, he had a 5-star rating. Like that's an opportunity for us to go back and recognize that associate without a manual process. So right now it's very manual, but that's what we're looking towards is how do we, you talked about the employee experience, right? And how do we do that? How do
Hmm.
we provide the employee a better experience and recognize and coach or just recognize and have a great conversation like we talked about the first time you meet a customer if you're asking for 15 things versus welcome and how can we help you, if you're an employee and the first conversation you get from a manager of the new year is you did a phenomenal job, 98% of your
Yeah.
stuff, you got 5-star ratings, like we're so pleased. What an awesome opportunity for an employee to feel a part of something and valued, and that's our biggest thing is we have to value our people, and how do you show that in a meaningful way?
Something that Brian and I have both run across over the past quarter is um, we will both work on either survey data or interview responses. And what we found very helpful is things like pulling quotes out of transcripts that we
Yes.
just wouldn't have really identified before. It's not to say we use all of them, but we've been able to do that as well as kind of use a language model for very fast sentiment analysis. And I recognize there are all kinds of applications that do sentiment analysis type work, but just by having the transcripts and the text exchanges, via chatbot, we found, oh, great, this is a wonderful source of feedback for us, either at the departmental leadership level
Mhm.
as well as at a manager level. Have you all run across those types of cases?
So we do use the transcription and the summarization for our case management, and we're actually now moving it into currently using it for one of our departments for phone calls, where it'll transcribe the voicemails and basically do kind of that pre-work. And we're working on the sentiment part, but it does at least allow us to see, to your point, the transactions, and if we saw that somebody was struggling or there was comments. But again, to your point, it allows us to look at the data and see where we can improve and to see where we can go from there. And so, you mentioned earlier, we use something that is an email composer. So when we're responding, we have a consistent and very curated response for that specific engagement. But if you have a customer that engages with you 20 times a day with orders or questions, they want it to be consistent because they want to know, like, well, where's the order number and where is the date it's going to be delivered. So if it's somebody who's not, there's a little bit of creativity in there that doesn't necessarily provide a good customer experience. And sometimes we say, well, we want it to be personalized, but you also have to look at, is that what the customer wants, right? If it's something where it's a response, do they really need it personalized, or are they looking in the same spot for my order number and when it's going to be delivered, or,
Yeah.
or those things? And, that also helps us understand their frustration if we don't get that right, because it will create another email, or it might create a live chat where someone says, well, you sent me this and I don't understand it, or I can't find this. So that gives us some of that opportunity to look and say, is this meeting the criteria? And then how can we capture, the sediment? And then we're also looking at from the beginning to the end, right? Someone can start out not being happy, but if the end result was they were satisfied and super happy, then really that's what we want to go ahead and use as a benchmark.
Yeah, that so makes sense. I think going back to the personalization, the default is personalization, but it's personalization of the person sending the email rather than the person receiving
Right.
the email.
Correct. Correct.
So cool that you all have elevated that to let's be consistent, and we can vary from there. But
Right. And there's still, again, we talk about human in the middle. There's still a human in the middle. They can look at it, they can use it and say, doesn't sound right. They can adjust something and send it, or they can look at it and say it looks great and just send it. So, you talked about it. It takes that time to pull the data, to structure it, to go ahead and type up the response. And then it really is just a quality check, is what we're doing.
Nice.
I'm going to kind of shift the conversation just a little bit to the implementation part of it.
Yes.
So I'm really curious about as you all were going through the iterative development process and rolling this out piece by piece, what did you all find that was relatively straightforward? And what did you all find where you all needed to say, hey, we this is going to take a little more work, or let's get a few things done and maybe then we'll tackle that.
Yes. So the live chat, I think, was one of the more friendly iterations,
Yeah.
because we already had a menu based, we already had some structure in place, and then we already had templates that we were using for responses and quick chats. So there was a lot that, from, I think, both the user side internally as well as the customer, that our dev team was able to really seamlessly move it into the CRM, and we were able to execute it pretty easily. Not to say that we didn't have to tweak and go over iterations, but it was definitely less. There's other ones where, with the kind of the account scrubber, like for new accounts, right? There was a few things in the beginning that we really had to work on, and we just defaulted back to where we were doing it again by the human to adjust, and then we would tweak it and have another iteration. That was a little bit more difficult. Again, that's not 100%, but we've added things. We've added something where if the AI feels that they're 98% confident in that the accuracy of the information, we have that now where we can see it. So the associate can look at that and say, is this accurate? Is it credible? But again, there's some more iterations there. There's a few others that we've done that we realize are just going to require a little bit more investment and time, more iterations. And so as we work through those, again, it's how do we make sure, again, it's easy for the customer to adopt and onboard and digest versus, just checking a box that we got it out there and we met our goal.
Yeah, I think that's key. You and I talked earlier, Michael, about this. Is it's not set it, forget it. It's not install. Correct. You use the term Outlook. It's not put Outlook in and just let it run. It's kind of a constant iteration. So back to what Brooks, you were saying earlier about how those roles are going to develop, right? You've got now a person eventually that becomes that person that helps iterate and helps making sure that stays relevant and the customer still gets a good experience out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you grow with AI, one of the things that I have on my plans are, that becomes a dedicated position. That's not going to be a position that your current manager or supervisors can handle, because as you grow, there is a full-time job of maintaining your AI from the user side, right? So it's different than that. We have the development team that can handle the development side, but from the user side, it's really integral in your everyday operation to ensure that it's not hallucinating, that it's accuracy, particularly when you have compliance and regulatory areas that you have to, to look at. And anybody right now in any industry that's using AI, you always have the data security portion of it. So again, we have to constantly have someone that's going to be able to monitor that, check for quality, check for accuracy, check for opportunities, right? Maybe we've reached our point in this iteration, and now we have to update it, and we have to re-educate, we have to retrain, and we have to refocus the AI to move our customers forward. I mean, the goal of anything is to be able to answer our customer, get them back to work. They're the ones moving this industry forward, and if they make money, we all benefit. So the quicker we can do that in a mindful way, is the ideal. So we can't be stagnant or rest on our laurels. And I think you had brought it up too, Brian, that we're not talking years like we used to. Well, what was the long-term plan? 3 to 5 years. We're barely even talking months anymore. I mean, we're talking like, how is this working, today? How is it going to work tomorrow? How is it working, within the next couple of weeks? And do we need to adjust something that quickly? And having a team that can be nimble and really be responsive is also critical, because it is changing so quickly.
Were there any portions that, as you all were working on it, like something in the technology environment began to change and you all said, oh, that's interesting, we'll get to that later, or that's interesting, we might have to change this now?
I think we deal with that almost with every iteration. I think I think it's because, again, it goes back to the customer's expectations. Mm-hmm. So, we did something where we utilized it as a pilot, voicemail instead of phone, went right to voicemail. And then instead of a human listening to the voicemail, it goes right to AI, and they drop it into a case, and then we restructure. We were very lucky being a subsidiary of Wasco. They have a lot of technologies that we can utilize, and so one of them is our mobile app. And so what we've done as a pilot was we actually just moved the voicemail off and redirected everyone to use the mobile app, and it really was a better experience for some of those customers. But we do see there's another set of customers that are very, let's say, less than thrilled to be moved in that direction. So it is definitely going to have to be a phased approach. It's definitely going to have to be a pilot approach until we can really get everyone comfortable and not forcing everyone into that. And I think from an internal side, it is when we introduce something that is to help benefit the associates, it's also listening to where they're saying, yeah, this produces this information, but it's taking longer than I could have typed this out, or it's taking longer than I could have responded to the customer, so I don't use it. And I think just, you have to push your pride aside. Just because you put something together and you thought it was going to work out great, but the people that are using it aren't seeing a value in it. It's just like our customers. We have to go back and say, why are we doing this? If we're defaulting to what we used to do because it doesn't add any savings or any value, we can't keep these in place. And that's really where I think we constantly have to do that evaluation.
Yeah, I think that's a really mature, good way of looking at it. Of we have the constituency of our customers. We also have the users of
Yes.
primary users of the AI, who are our associates. And then we also need to evaluate how the AI itself is performing, because that's since things are no longer entirely deterministic and working off of just rules, but probabilities. It's kind of in a way, a new employee to figure out how it needs to be managed, and how you provide oversight as well as guidance back to that tool.
Yeah, 100% agree. That's the best way to look at it is as a new employee, and you have to do the same protocol for the performance evaluation, the quality, the coaching, the retraining, what have you.
That's fascinating. That's absolutely fascinating.
Awesome. Well, this has been a very fascinating conversation, Michael. I really appreciate the forward thinking that CE is going through. I mean, you guys are on the front end of this, and this is something that eventually we're all going to get there. But you guys are taking a very proactive approach, and having the customer in mind first is obviously the way to go. So we appreciate you spending some time with us, sir.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. It's a really great venue for us to discuss this. And as you noted, it's new, but it's not that new. AI's been around for a long
Yeah,
time. And I think it's the right time to start looking at these engagements with our customers and within our business, but doing it in a mindful and meaningful way. And so I appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk and kind of
absolutely.
discuss what we've done, and hopefully other people will find some value as well.
Start to follow the lead. We appreciate that. And speaking of AI, I'm not going to try to share this screen again because Mama didn't raise any dummy. But speaking of AI, tomorrow, the state of AI distribution is coming out. We've done a very exhaustive survey over the last couple of months, and the results are in. So Jonathan and myself will be talking tomorrow about what does AI look like in distribution for last year? How does it compare to what happened last year, and what progress has the industry made? So make sure you sign into that. That one's going to be a very well attended event to make sure you get the latest information about what's happening within AI in distribution. And then the following week, January 14th, Wholesale Change, we've got the CEO of Purity Life, Matthew James, who is they're the largest full service natural and organics products distributor in Canada. So he's going to be talking to us about how they've built that business over time. So very good programs coming up the next couple of weeks. Again, make sure you log on tomorrow for the state of AI, and appreciate everybody being patient with the technical issues today, and we had a great time today. Thanks again, fellas, and we will see you soon.
Thanks again. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.